My name's Keith Morgan. I'm the president of the West Virginia Citizens Defense League. On October 25th, Joe Manchin held an event at Shepherd University titled Coffee and Common Sense. The WVCDL was present.
I think basically that all this violence that we have in our country, it's really stems from mental illness.
Did you hear what he just said? I'm going to put that up on the screen for you so that you can see what you just heard. So Joe Manchin believes that the violence problems in our country, including mass shootings and school shootings, etc., stem from mental illness. Yet Manchin-Toomey does nothing to address mental illness at a tangible level. What he wants to do instead is punish law-abiding gun owners by setting up conditions by which a registry can be formed of gun owners nationwide for every firearm in this country. So on the issue of background checks, my friend, WVCDL Vice President Art Tom, had a question about the effectiveness of those background checks Senator Manchin wishes to expand so very dearly.
In 2010, there were 76,142 denials through the NICS system that were referred to ATF from the FBI. 76,142 falsified NICS checks. People that went through the system, your system, that you want to expand, and they said this.
Oh, now note that he interrupted Art just now to make sure that we refer to this as our background check system.
Yeah, our system that you want to expand, you're going to help us all out. 76,142. Out of that 76,142 that were referred over for prosecution for falsifying the documents, Joe, do you remember in our earlier conversations how many have been were sought for prosecution? One was sought for prosecution.
In 2010, over 76,000 people committed a felony by lying on their 4473, which is the background check form. One was prosecuted by BATFE, the federal agency with the word firearms in their name.
Basically, they haven't done a good job in the background checks. They haven't followed up. They haven't enforced them. They haven't prosecuted.
Oh, now it's they. They haven't followed up. They haven't prosecuted. Oh, but Joe, just a few seconds ago, I thought it was our background check system. So what you're telling me, Senator, is that we have a system that isn't used, no one's prosecuted, and it's full of failure. And what you're requesting of the American people and law-abiding gun owners is you want more failure. Yeah, that's why we sent you to Congress, Joe. So now the good senator, in all his wondrous logic, has decided to introduce Manchin-Toomey in the wake of Sandy Hook. So I decided to ask him a specific question about Sandy Hook and his introduction of Manchin-Toomey.
Manchin-Toomey would have prevented Adam Lanza from committing a murder and stealing the guns from his first victim. How would that have affected that situation? I don't know. Sure. The bill that we put together was this. The Manchin-Toomey bill was basically the background checks, but we had more in there too. What we had in there was basically a commission on violence. How did this society become so violent? And we're not saying that we could have stopped that.
Did you hear what he just said? He said, we're not saying that we could have stopped that. Of course you couldn't have stopped that, Senator. What part of a background check bill would have stopped an individual from committing murder to obtain his weapons? How do you think a background check bill is going to stop a psychopath from obtaining by violent means the weapons he uses to inflict his damage?
but let me tell you, Adam Lanza came in because he broke a window coming in the front door. The school was locked down.
Right, his first victim was his mother, whom he murdered to obtain those firearms. So how Manchin-Toomey?
No, you're not going to. I mean, on those there, you're not going to stop me.
You're not going to. That's what he says. You're not going to stop these violent psychopaths. So that leaves me with the only conclusion that I can possibly reach. Senator, your legislation is agenda-driven because you do not believe that Americans should have firearms for self-defense. You're not going to stop them. Well, I'm glad you recognize that. Then why in the world would you introduce this legislation?
Situation, then you are admitting that Manchin-Toomey would not have prevented the school violence.
No, let me tell you this now. You're talking about the school violence. He got involved, as I'm understanding, by breaking the front window.
Well, we need to step back
Hold on, I'm going to this, if I may. I was governor. I helped build a lot of schools and helped renovate a lot of schools. Not one architect ever come to me and said, Governor, you got to put bulletproof windows on the first floor. Go on. This Commission on Mass Violence would have recommended that, and we would have been able, we're retrofitting all of our schools' first floors right now that have shatterproof so they can't blow them out or shoot them out. Now we're getting what we call prevention resource officer. We're getting police, if you will, into the schools from kindergarten all the way up, trying to protect from that standpoint. You're not going to prevent a crazy person from doing a violent act to their mother or a loved one or whatever caused that to happen.
So the senator seems fixated on bulletproof windows in schools. He admits that you can't stop a violent psychopath from doing violent psychopathic things. So let me ask you, Senator, what about the school buses? What about the movie theaters? What about all those places that children and the American public in general gather in groups? Are you going to wrap us all in bulletproof cocoons? Are we all going to carry around Lexan boxes to protect us from the gunfire of lunatics? No, Senator. The only way to deal with this is to allow us the means, and those of us that have the will and the mindset to defend ourselves and defend others from these lunatics. That's the way we solve the problem, not bulletproof windows in schools. This has been Keith Morgan with the West Virginia Citizens Defense League. If you agree with us on this, why don't you give Senator Manchin's office a call? Let him know how you feel. And if he's not going to help you out, if he's not going to agree to drop Manchin-Toomey, ask him where you can get your bulletproof box.